Sizing units compatible with any given CSS rule will vary depending on the CSS rule being declared. Since this tutorial series is focused on CSS for web development, we will cover pixel, percent, em, and rem in this video, as these are the sizing units commonly used for web development. To begin, sizing units can be broken up into two groups, absolute and relative. We are only going to look at one unit that is an absolute unit, and that is pixel. Pixels are the individual sections of a display that make up the entirety of what is being displayed. As displays have a variety of sizes and resolutions, the size of a pixel will vary depending on the display it is on. While pixel size is relative to screen size and resolution, it is considered absolute sizing, as its size does not change in relation to another element or viewport. Pixel can be used with a CSS property that accepts a numerical value. For example, we can assign the value of 20 pixels to font size. We can assign a value of 3 pixels to the CSS property border width. We can also use pixels with the CSS properties margin and padding. Notice when we apply a font size of 20 pixels to this text, the size of the text does not change no matter the element it is within and no matter the viewport size. Hence, it is an absolute unit. On the other hand, relative sizing units are not static. The result of applying such units will vary depending on a parent element, a viewport, or a root element. Let's look into using percent as a sizing unit to get a better understanding of relative sizing units. Here we have a paragraph element contained within a div element. The div element will have a width of 300 pixels and a height of 200 pixels. We will set the font size of the paragraph element to 100%. Let's also set the background color of the div to something other than white. After saving the changes and loading the page, we can see the text doesn't take up 100% of the container, even though we have set the value of the font size to 100%. That's because in this case, 100% refers to 100% of the font size of the parent element, which is the div element. And since we did not explicitly assign a font size to the div element, it remains the default size of 16 pixels. Therefore, the text is 16 pixels. If we set the font size of the paragraph element to 50%, it will end up being 8 pixels, since 8 is 50% of 16. Similarly, if we set the font size of the paragraph element to 200%, it will end up resulting in our text being 32 pixels, like such. As another example, let's change the p element to a div element. We'll assign the background color orange and set the width to 50% and the height to 100%. Here we can better comprehend that the orange div we just created takes up 50% of the width of the green div and 100% of the height of the green div. Next, we'll look at em and rem. Both these are relative sizing units and are similar enough to discuss together. First, em sizes relatively to the parent element's font size. What that means is, if we have a div with the font size set to 24 pixels, and we have a paragraph inside the div with a font size of 1em, the text within the parent element will be 24 pixels, the font size of the parent element, in this case, this div. Now if we set the font size of the paragraph element to 1.2em, then the size of the text within the paragraph element will be 1.2 times 24 pixels, which is 28.8 pixels. Let's verify that. We'll go ahead and create another paragraph element with a font size of 28.8 pixels. As we can see, they are the same size. Let's add some text within a span element within the paragraph element here, and give it a font size of 1.2em. Do you think the text within the span will also be 28.8 pixels? It will not, because the parent element of the span element is this paragraph element, and we know that the size of the text in this paragraph element is 28.8 pixels, or 1.2 times that of the font size of this paragraph element's parent element, this div element. Therefore, the text contained within this span element will be 1.2 times 28.8, which is 34.56. Once again, we can verify that by changing the font size of this other paragraph element to 34.56 pixels. Now let's look at rem. Rem sizes relatively to the root element's font size, that root element being the HTML element. So, If we manually set the font size in the HTML element to 24 pixels and apply a font size of 1 rem to this paragraph element here, then the font size of the text within this element will be set to 24 pixels. If we set it to 1.5 rem, the font size will be 1.5 times that of the font size of the root or HTML element. That's 1.5 times 24, which is 36 pixels. We can verify this by adding another paragraph element with a font size of 36 pixels. And as we can see, the text is the same size. Now, unlike M, if we contain text within a span element within this paragraph element and give the span element a font size of 1.5 rem, the text will still be 1.5 times that of the root element, or 36 pixels, not 1.5 times 36 pixels, the font size of this paragraph element. That's because rem is always relative to the root element, not the parent element. A good way to remember this is that the R in rem stands for root. Now in the case that a font size isn't explicitly set for the root element, the default font size will be that of the web browser. The font size is designed to be appropriately sized for the device the browser is running on. For this reason, rem and M have become the go-to sizing units in CSS as responsive web design has increased in popularity. With that said, there is and will be occurrences where an absolute sizing unit like pixel will be the better choice in determining which to use.